So one of the theses behind the book is that behind many big failures or missed opportunities, there are actually people who have been not heard correctly, or maybe simply sort of tolerated for a while, or even dismissed. And the first story is about Steven Sasson, which in 1973 invented the first digital camera. Now, not many people know that the company that Steven was working for was actually Kodak. And the first time when he sort of presented this idea to management, what they were saying is that, actually it's a very famous sentence, they would say, there is no way that anybody will ever look at the picture on a screen. And if we were live on a conference, you would see that all of us would be taking pictures or watching the phone, and then using it as a day-to-day tool, right? So what happened is that what was the reaction? It was just tolerated. It was allowed to keep working on it. But the fact is that besides some money that Kodak indeed made on the digital camera patent, then it is very well known that they missed the digital train and they filed for bankruptcy in 2012. Very sad story. So here we are talking about rebels, and as a first sort of high-level characteristic of this type of guys is that they're likely to be, not completely dumb, but most importantly, they're driven by different things. So like freedom and passion and meaning, for example. And, now I'm addressing all of you in the crowd. And if you're working for like a very large companies, think of, these guys that are usually difficult to promote. They look like a little bit different or even weird sometimes, for which like money doesn't really matter, but they are more about relevance, and they have very peculiar ideas. Well, my thesis is that these guys are actually a particular type of talent that needs to be nurtured in a different way. So what is the most likely reaction to a company about rebels? Well, the reaction is this one. And in case you wonder, that was an empty slide. Because the reaction is that they do nothing. Or actually, in a best case scenario, they tolerate the rebels. So they allow them to keep working whatever they're working on without trying to empower them, without trying to use their talent and work in a productive way. And here, there is another story. Now, before, because I've been doing this a little bit, for the past 90 days, I will just check. Anna, is everything okay? Do you hear me correctly? Is all good?
Yes, this is okay.
Perfect. So
you can slideshow?
Of course. It was actually because then I could see. I did it on purpose. So we're back online, all good. We are here for the second story. This guy is Reed Hastings, and there is an amazing story about him because one day he went to a very important meeting with a guy called John Antioco. And Reed was actually in a very bad shape, Reed's company. And he said, listen, I need money. We have a very expensive infrastructure. The idea is great, but you know, I think that your company, John, is amazing and we should strike a partnership. Or you could buy my company. John Antioco asked Reed, how much you want for your company? And Reed says, $50 million. John laughed rumorously and I said, come on, you know, get out of it. This, you know, is not working. And a very famous sentence of Reed Hastings after that episode was, it is actually not enough to drive change, but you also have to survive victory and you need to build a plan from the start. What does that mean? It means that even if you are on the top position of the market, you still need to think what could come and disrupt your business. So what happened is that John Antioco was the CEO of a company called Blockbuster, which I remember very well because I used to rent, you know, DVDs and plenty of movies this way. And Blockbuster, you know, at the peak of his valuation was close to $3 billion. And what happened to the company is that it went bankrupt in 2010. Now, few of you, if not all of you, now realize that Reed Hastings was the founder of Netflix, that at his peak, and probably now pretty much, you know, past that, was $128 billion. In other words, that $50 million would have been a great investment. Now, what's the point here? My point about this type of talents is that this is not a supposed revolution. We're not talking about, you know, something that is unmissable to do it, right? It's not your best opportunity ever, right? But what I'm pretty sure is that if you don't do anything about them, so if you don't let this type of lateral thinkers challenge you, you might be missing an opportunity as a company, okay, to what is coming to disrupt you, okay? So it is certainly missing a great opportunity to innovate. So these are lateral thinkers, as I was saying, and by definition of a lateral thinkers, these guys have a way to connect business dots that it is beyond what I call the incremental innovation. So every company says we innovate, right? Nobody says we don't care about innovation. But most of companies, they do take care of what I call incremental innovation and takes very little the disruptive innovation into account. What is disruptive innovation? Is waves that can come and change completely your business model. So here's a third and last story of the presentation, which is mine. So this is 2011, and it is actually a picture from the Innotribe Startup Challenge. And these guys are the two founders of a company called TransferWise, which is one of the multi-unicorns, because it's close to $5 billion valuation of these neobanks, like Revolut, number 26, and so on. So, you know, a little bit on the left of that picture, there is me, because that was the startup challenge that we launched and that I invented within Innotribe. And back then, TransferWise, there were only 3 people, right? And they were looking for funding. So what I said is that in 2013 is that I tried during 1 year to be able to get Innotribe within SWIFT to build a fund to be able to invest in these startups. And I was saying, guys, it's a great opportunity. Financial services and banks are going to be disrupted. These startups are going to help. And by the way, there were so many more, even Revolut participated to the challenge. And as a SWIFT, we could have invested in these startups with very, very little money. So I tried to sell internally this idea to the CEO, to the chief marketing officers, to the chief financial officers, you know, with trying to pool internal resources to be able to pull this off. And I failed. And because I was driven and I believed so blindly in this idea, I actually happened to, you know, I left the company. I left SWIFT. And I swear to God, I had such an amazing job. You know, I was one of the co-founders of the innovation arm. I was traveling the world. I had a great salary and all that. But the project that I was believing so blindly on, it wasn't, you know, it didn't happen. Therefore, I had to leave because I wasn't feeling truthful to myself. So here is a little bit of what I've learned. This is not everything that I learned, because some of you are supposed to buy the book, right? So if I tell you everything you want, you know, you feel less compelled to buy it, or at least to, you know, invite me to talk about it. So here's the hints. So first of all, which is one of the greatest lessons, you don't need to mix up noise with relevance, because not all rebels are worth your attention as a corporate, right? Because some are just, you know, noisemakers. And noisemakers are actually not useful for your company. On the contrary, they are actually just troublemakers in a bad sense. The second, which is the number one, because that number 0 was like the fundamental one. Distinguish noise with relevance. And the first tip is actually, rebels should be considered as a resource like any others, like analysts or like, you know, project leaders. You know, they should be rebels or lateral thinkers. They're just, you know, easier to, they are easy to spot because they sort of, if you look with the right eyes, they are like out of the crowd, out of the mass. But at the same time, you might feel uncomfortable in managing them and into putting them together. The second tip is that you don't need to stigmatize them, right? So these guys, that's why I said you need a sandbox and not a zoo, in the sense that, you know, you don't have to sort of put them in a place as if they were the Avengers or exceptional people or like very different from anyone else. No, they are different indeed, but they just should be considered as a specific type of resource that today has not yet a place in your company. Now, the third tip is like, some of them do wear a tie. You don't need to think of rebels about people who like don't wear a tie or a suit for 7 years, like myself, for example. And I have a story here. So there is this guy called Daniel Marowitz that used to be the youngest board member of Deutsche Bank, that he is now working for Booking.com and is the head of innovation and financial services there. And he hired 400 people in less than a year. Why? Because Booking.com is not a travel company. is actually a financial services company. So they realized that by hiring someone that could improve the way they collect their payments, the bottom line of the company would have improved massively. So that's what they did. But they hired someone like Daniel, whom I interviewed, by the way, in the book, together with other 11 amazing other people. And Daniel was able not only to scale that startup within Booking.com, but also to manage these 400 people to their best. So again, don't think of rebels like people with piercing or like flip-flops and shorts all year long. And again, it's not about age. It's not about being a millennial or a Gen Z, you know. This type of talent, they stays the same during the course of the year. The only thing is that, you know, the more you keep them, if you don't use them, the more expensive will likely be to fire them. And that's half of a joke. Another tip is that if you really want to use these rebels to your advantage, you need to cluster them. Meaning that you actually need to leverage each other's competencies and skills and talents so that they become something that you can use as a company, meaning a cell for innovation. We will talk about it later. I think it's at here. They can become your idea lab, or like the instigators for new businesses. Or you can build a sandbox with them, which is a sort of a company place, could be virtual or physical, you name it. It was physical for us. We had a sandbox at SWIFT, you know, with Innotribe, where we were even bringing customers to try new things, right? And most importantly, they can be the type of people that challenge your status quo. So with that, and hoping that I sort of convey the message that this is an opportunity for a company, but is also the book, a guide, a survival guide for all these rebels that, or all this type of talent, and call them however you want, right? Call it rebels, call it misfits, call it dissenters, call it lateral thinkers. But, you know, most of the time, when I give this presentation in an actual crowd, I have statistically 2 to 5% of the, according to, you know, which type of, you know, conference I'm talking about, that comes to me and say, you know, thank you, because I thought I was the only one. And since I wrote the book, I've got plenty of letters and comments from people that saying that was, you know, that really helped me in sort of placing some of my thoughts and some of the ways that I am, you know, within the company and with myself. And I'm really happy that I could hopefully help some of these individuals to sort of, you know, feeling better within their structures. And also, which is the plan, I would love to help companies to handle these rebels and embrace the tension. Thank you. That was my presentation.
Obrigada, Matteo. Tenho aqui algumas questões para fazer. Eu vou colocar em português, mas o Matteo está à vontade para responder em inglês.
Eu posso já parar de partilhar o...
Sim, Matteo.
Tudo bem.
Então, antes de fazer já as questões, aqui esclarecer apenas que quando nós referimos a app do evento, é o próprio site em que já se está a assistir ao evento, para algumas dúvidas de pessoas que pensaram que havia uma app adicional. Quando falamos em app, é no sítio onde já estão a acompanhar o evento. Em relação às apresentações, nós vamos disponibilizar, como habitual, aquelas que os oradores também disponibilizarem. Portanto, depois no final do evento vai haver também a habitual avaliação e nós vamos disponibilizar aquelas que forem autorizadas. Agora sim, Matteo, uma pergunta muito concreta que a Rita Martinho nos colocou, que é para o Matteo dar uma sugestão de como é que nós podemos distinguir os bons rebeldes dos outros.
Okay, of course, this is a question that comes a lot, and is part of what I said about distinguish people from that are just, you know, noisemakers to the real innovators. Well, the good news is that once you mentally are available to give a space to this type of talents, then they will be almost a Darwinian, a sort of a natural, selection of the good and the bad. Why? Because the company's DNA, the company ecosystem, the company's sort of soul will naturally get in sync with these rebels that are actually there because they have the future of the company at heart, and it will be extremely easy to get rid of the people who just do noise, because you know why? The people who just make noise, they're the one who never deliver anything. So if you put all the rebels in a single place, you will immediately see who are the leaders and also who are the ones that are just there because they're protesting and they will never deliver anything.
Obrigada, Matteo. Esperamos ter ajudado. Outro comentário é que os rebeldes são normalmente mais criativos. É assim?
Estatisticamente, sim, é um pouco assim. Mas criativos no sentido que, como eu dizia na apresentação, vão a conectar ideias de uma forma diferente, porque não tem um pensamento linear, não é? E são esse tipo de pessoas que vão, por exemplo, a tomar uma oportunidade de negócio que não tem nada a ver com o negócio mesmo da empresa lá que trabalham, porque podem ver que, juntando os dois negócios, vai sair uma terceira oportunidade, que é o produto das combinações das duas, por exemplo. Mas estatisticamente é assim. Se temos que dizer é assim ou não é assim, pois é assim mesmo.
Ok. Obrigada, Matteo. Obrigada pela partilha.